Make sure your team is prepared to fight off the latest cybersecurity threat. IT Pro TV is the resource to keep you and your IT team skills up to date. You can stream IT Pro TV's courses live and on demand worldwide, so there's no need to send staff to off-site training. Their team solution provides access to a supervisor portal for full control over your team's training schedule and group analytics. Visit itpro.tv/enterprise security and use the code ES30 to try it free for 7 days and receive 30% off your monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. To learn more about IT Pro TV's team solution, sign up for a free demo of their supervisor portal. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly, where we're going to have an enterprise take on the Equifax breach. We did kind of the consumer version on our Secure Digital Life program with Doug White and myself. You can find that at securedigitalife.com. That's the show, like, if you listen to this show or Paul Security Weekly and you're like, wow, that's great, but I have no idea what you guys are talking about, you should go listen to Secure Digital Life at securedigitalife.com. And a couple of quick announcements before we dig into it. SANS Hackfest. John, tell us how awesome the SANS Hackfest is.
We came up with a list, Paul, of all of the best speakers in the information security community that we could think of, that we know well enough to convince them to get on an airplane and come to South Dakota. We put out requests to every single one of them.
That would be Wild West Hacking Fest. That's okay, though. You can talk about that one.
This is a different one. I thought you said Hacking Fest.
You have it on your brain because it's pretty soon. It's about a month away. Well, tell us about Wild West Hacking Fest and then SANS Hack Fest. How about that?
All right, so Wild West Hacking Fest, we got a whole bunch of people coming to South Dakota. It's awesome. It's out in the middle of nowhere. We're paying for breakfast. We're paying for lunch. We got a dinner one of the nights. There's a Halloween party. Bo and I are going to do a metal show. Bo is really, really into, I think it's technically black metal, and I'm going to be singing. So we've got all kinds of craziness, chaos.
That's so racist, John. So racist.
No, black metal.
I'm just joking.
I got in touch with my inner.
I didn't know there was going to be a Halloween. I need a full briefing now and everything. I didn't know there was going to be a Halloween party. I have to plan a costume now.
Dude, you just wear a plaid shirt and say that you're me.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about SANS Hackfest? That's after. This is November now. So October and then November.
So Hackfest is like, basically, if you look at Hackenfest, it's like the warm-up gig for Hackfest. And then Hackfest is out in the D.C. area. Ed Scotus is putting that one on, and it's just, once again, just stupid. Amazing presenters. All kinds of new tools get dropped there. They have Net Wars, where if you didn't get a challenge coin from any classes that you've taken, you can go there and win some more challenge coins for each level that you progress through in Net Wars. Ed always does this thing where it's like the super secret dinner out, and they've gone to the Spy Museum. They went to the Air and Space Museum. Really, honestly, Ed puts on one of the best shows in the world, hands down. So go ahead and check out that one as well. It's just going to be a really, really cool time and some amazing things in DC.
Awesome. We're giving a webcast today for Endgame, securityweekly.com/Endgame. We are going to talk about evaluating technology for endpoint detection and response. I think that's today.
When are we doing this?
4 to 5 p.m. today?
An hour from now.
Yeah, like really pretty soon. And then we're also doing one for Logarithm. I don't know if you're on the Logarithm one, John.
I don't know. Sam books me on these things, and I write the slides the day before, so I might be. So
securityweekly.com/Logarithm, if I can spell it. I didn't spell it right that time. But it's securityweekly.com/Logarithm. Information about the Logarithm one. We're going to talk about phishing, anti-phishing and phishing stuff on that one. And then Cyber Reason, I didn't even tell you this one yet. I don't know when it's booked, but pretty soon, securityweekly.com/Cyber Reason. John, they want us to talk about threat intelligence and what we think about threat intelligence, and then they're going to give their perspective on how they help people overcome the shortcomings of threat intelligence. How about that? I think you can handle that one. I think I
got that one. I think I can list out all the problems of cyber threat intelligence if they want to come. And they've been really, really cool with us in the past.
Absolutely.
It's weird that they're sponsors, but they were like, yes, we agree with what John says. And it's like, what? Oh, okay. But they do some really cool stuff that doesn't add up to just cyber threat intelligence. They do a lot of other integration.
Well, Cyber Reason does endpoint detection and response and has a team of people that are doing threat hunting. And so doing that, they're like, wow, threat intelligence has some issues. Very similar to your journey, right? Doing threat hunting, you're like, holy crap, threat intelligence really has some issues. So we're gonna get on a webcast. Hopefully, I don't know if you're here for that one though. I don't think you're here for that one. We have to get someone else. But anyway.
If I am, it's going to be awesome. If I'm not, it's going to be awesome. It's just, I'm kind of shocked. We've gotten a lot of really good vendors that let us talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. And they're cool with it. It's very nice.
It's awesome. You should check those out. securityweekly.com/the vendor name. Endgame is today, and we'll post the archives where you can get it if you missed it. And then there's Logarithm, and then there is Cyber Reason. So go do that. All right. Hey, Equifax. What? I haven't even talked to you about the Equifax breach yet, John. What do you think?
So we talked about it a little bit before the show started, and I kind of joked about it, but it's one of those what the hell type breaches. I think it's like now 147 million accounts, possibly social security numbers and dates of birth. And we've never gotten full clarity on what the attackers got access to. And that's bad, right? Any organization can be compromised, and that's bad. We somewhat expect that. But if we start kind of backing up and we look at how Equifax handled this, and a lot of this is just rumor at this point, but if we look at the timeline, there's a bunch of things that are very troubling about what's going on at Equifax. The first thing is the timing of the release of notifying the public about this breach. It was right as Hurricane Irma was attacking the United States. They're like, oh, well, there's a breach. And I think the hope was that the hurricane news cycle would bury this story. And that clearly did not happen.
Was not the case, no.
That was not the case. And then on top of that, there was a couple of executives that sold a whole bunch of stock the day before, I believe, or very shortly before.
I think it was a couple of days before.
It's a couple of days,
They claim they didn't know about it, which I think is bad.
Total
I think
BS and garbage.
The smartest question that someone asked on that front was, what was the date that Mandiant was brought in? And if that was before they sold the stock, then they were most certainly, the thought is they were lying about not knowing about it, because if you have a breach and you're bringing someone like Mandiant in to clean it up, right, the fact that the CFO wouldn't know about that expenditure would probably not be true, right? Because the CFO was one of the ones that was
has
found
to sign off on it.
Yeah, they have to sign off on bringing Mandiant. I mean, you got to imagine a breach of that size. You're not just bringing Mandiant in, you're probably bringing in another public relations kind of firm as well. That's millions of dollars right there. In a breach of that size, no, right? At least
just calling Mandiant. I think it's $9.95 per minute. I'm not sure. I mean,
$995 per minute.
Is so bad these days that they're now. I think their default number to call them is a 1-900 number. So it's bad all the way through.
Yeah, but now they fired. Well, the CSO has retired.
The CISO and the
CISO and the CIO. Yes, we're both.
Yeah.
The CIO was listed. Yeah, well, the CIO was listed as having left. The CSO was having listed as being retired. So, but in both
that's kind
those,
of the equivalent of taking a cow out, putting some grain in the middle of the field, rubbing them on the head, and when they start eating, shooting them. That's we just retired some cows.
Yes, exactly. But John, my thought on that was, I don't necessarily. I think a lot of people put a lot of blame, and there was this whole hoopla of how the CISO had a music degree. Like that matters to me so little. I can't even tell you what their background was. Is completely irrelevant. But the fact that they were both effectively removed from their positions, even though they say retired and left, they were essentially forced out. And probably damage control for public relations would be my guess. I'm not sure.
There's no question it's damage control for public relations. I agree with you on the music degree thing. My bachelor's is in political science, political theory, and international studies. What's your degree background? I thought you actually had a technical degree, though. I
have a degree in business with a concentration in information systems.
See, you're a business degree. There's no way you should be doing anything.
Why am I doing security? I don't have a degree in security. Oh, wait, you couldn't get a degree in security when John and I were in college.
The crap that we were learning in college that you could have learned in an IT degree was coding in freaking COBOL.
Yes, there was the COBOL at my school. Yes, it was. I didn't take it.
That's garbage,
anyway.
Right? But the point of this entire breach is, I think that this is textbook on how not to handle a breach. I think if there was any series of mistakes that they could have hit, they hit them. They had an earlier breach in March that they didn't notify people about. They didn't notify the people who were impacted. They notified their customers of the breach. They had another breach with the exact same vulnerability, the Apache Struts vulnerability that came out. And and then notification during a massive event to try to bury it, selling stock right before that information is actually made public. I mean, this is bad.
Now,
This
one of the
is something
things,
straight out of
John, I
Mr.
don't know,
Robot.
I don't know if you heard this from, some of my like more kind of undergroundish sources, right? But I did read some articles, and I can't find them right now, but I did read something about that the attackers who did the attack, or someone who knew how the attack was carried out, was coming out and saying it wasn't the Apache Struts vulnerability, that it was most definitely a username and password of admin on one of their interconnected applications. So users in one country of Equifax could access the credit information, and those credentials were like admin or something like that, and that it had very little to do with the Apache Struts vulnerability. That may have been one thing that they accessed in the attack, but read some rumblings about that, people claiming that it was because of a default username and password.
It absolutely could be either one of those. And I think this goes back to vulnerability management, right? A lot of the stuff kind of circles back. The fact that you're running Apache and you're running old versions of Apache with the vulnerable REST interface and Xstream is bad. Not getting that patched is bad. Having a default user ID and password on an external facing interface is bad.
Bad.
And I don't think that there's any way that this comes out. But here's the thing that I'm thinking, and I could be completely wrong about all of this, is the March breach. Let's talk about that one in particular. The March breach, the fact that they didn't notify their customers, the fact that they brought Mandiant, the fact that they notified some of their business-to-business customers. The concern that I have about that vulnerability is they honestly don't know. And that's a worst case scenario for a customer. So if you're looking at these breaches, it could be that the attackers used the Apache Struts vulnerability after the initial exploitation. It could have been that they accessed and broke into systems with admin after the initial exploitation.
Right.
But it's possible that, one, we don't know how they got in the first place, and two, there's a big concern, at least where I'm sitting looking at the March breach, that honestly people don't know what they got access to. And those are horrifying, horrifying conundrums, because as you know, Paul, very well, it's possible that we may never know the entire story because that data may not be available.
Right. I think, and what I called out, John, and I don't know if you agree or not, is that I don't blame individuals. I don't blame particular vulnerabilities. I don't blame, some of the specific processes or the way they handled the breach. What I can firmly place the blame on is a complete lack of creating any type of security culture. That probably worries me the most about this breach, that you have such a large company with so much PII on not just Americans, but people in other countries as well. And their complete lack of creating any kind of security culture, from everything that you've just described, everything we've been reading, all of the reports, even Equifax's own communications, seems to me like they just did not do a good job of creating a security culture.
And going further, that is absolutely 100% correct, but also the question of what next. There's nothing about this breach at all that I think is going to qualitatively and quantitatively improve security in bad organizations. Because if you have a bad CISO, a bad CEO, bad CFO, they just saw what happened with Equifax, and they said, well, this organization took a small hit in their stock price. It went right back up to where it was.
Right.
We saw that same trend in Target. So this is basically reinforcing a lot of bad security practices for other corporations. Because this company, honestly, after a breach of this magnitude, should have substantial fines going against it. There should be substantial lawsuits that should drive this company into the ground, and it should be reflected in their stock price. It hasn't. So it's reinforcing bad behavior for bad organizations. So my kind of last thought on that approach is, if you work in an organization and they come in and they're panicking about this Equifax breach, and it's all the way up to the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, then you're in a good security organization. They want to do what's right. But if you're in an organization that looks at something like this, and upper management looks at it and goes, meh, we've got insurance, and that didn't seem to impact that organization too terribly, we're going to continue on business as usual. This is a market for people that are looking for security jobs. Take advantage of that to leave and go find a good company to work for.
I find it interesting that this Apache Struts vulnerability, there's some evidence that Brian Krebs broke the other day that Experian has also unpatched examples of that, and actually linked to evidence, really good proof that it does, in fact, it is vulnerable to this. And I think this stems back to our previous conversation about organizations using the enterprise versions of Java, server-side Java, and that's how many of these enterprise applications are built, and not taking the time or the diligence in creating the processes to remediate vulnerabilities and or like patch this stuff in any capacity. It seems like, unless their patching plan was every 6 months. I mean, it is a business critical application. Look, I've been the sysadmin responsible for Java. Some of it was WebSphere, some of it was actually Jakarta. Remember Jakarta?
Yep.
Right. I was responsible.
We still see it in pen tests.
I was responsible for the maintenance of enterprise Java, web applications, not the code, but the infrastructure. Dude, in updating, it's like a big deal. It can break a ton of stuff. So I get that. But to be this large and really not communicate any evidence about like where they went wrong and what they're doing to improve it in the future, which really should be part of this breach control, is just shocking to me. So what you're saying is they're just going to continue to ignore these issues or continue with their same patch process when they lost all this information? Like,
well, look at all of the reinforcement that's happened this past year of bad behavior. You have yet another large organization that gets hit, doesn't impact the stock price. You have the Eternal Blue hits, compromises Windows XP, unpatched Windows 7 systems, all of these old operating systems, and Microsoft releases a patch for operating systems that were end of life. That reinforces that we don't have to patch our systems, because if it's bad enough, Microsoft will release a patch for us.
Right.
There's been a lot of reinforcement of incredibly bad behaviors. And that's why I have some hope, and this is horrible. I know some people are going to spam me on this, but if you look at GDPR and the fact that they can actually, I think they can fine you up to 6% of your profits, that's going to be huge at some point. We need to start having financial penalties against these organizations to hold them accountable as quickly as possible.
It's amazing that there is no penalty today in just suffering the breach, as you pointed out, John. Like, there's really like, it's like a little bit of harm, but really no foul, and we'll just, we'll continue on like everyone has. And that, you're right, it reinforces the bad behavior. But I also think it's resiliency to your business critical applications that it shows they're also not concerned with that, because they're not patching their enterprise applications because it might mean downtime. And if you're in an organization that hasn't figured that out or doesn't have a plan to figure that out moving forward in the future, like, you're way behind. I feel like you're way behind the 8 ball. And there are organizations on the complete opposite end of that are using containers and DevOps. And I mean, they're so far ahead of that problem. And that's why I'm very concerned about the enterprise Java usage and it just like being stuck in a rut of running these older applications. Now, I'm curious if organizations are putting Java web servers and web technology inside of containers and having luck in deploying that, which allows you to still use Java, but allows you to be more resilient in terms of patching and updating it. That there probably are people doing. If you are doing that, please reach out, find us. Well, I want to know about it. I think that's cool.
But if you look at any software development lifecycle or any like DevOps, any of those things, whenever you should have a plan for building software, you should have a plan for accepting software, you should have a plan for using and maintaining software. But the thing that's key for any software development lifecycle is there needs to be a plan for replacing and retiring software. And organizations do not have plans in place for retiring and replacing software. It's not even a policy or a process that exists at all in the vast majority of organizations. So
do you find that too? Do you find that, is that a question you ask, John, when you do like a web app pen test or evaluate the web applications, that there's no plan, right?
No, usually it shows up in our audits for like PCI audits and 20 critical control audits. It's basically, do you have a plan for retiring your software? And if they don't, they need to get that in very quickly.
Right. I think that there needs to be a huge culture shift, and I'm starting to see that shift where before, like we talked about COBOL, right? Like you said, well, we're going to write software, and this is the software that's going to run our business from now until the end of time. When you write software today, you have to think about how you're going to change and adopt the new technologies, because it'll help your business be better. There has to be some business driver. I think there is, but I don't, like you say, John, I don't see companies looking to adopt that, because writing software is hard, the process is hard, replacing things is hard, training your users is hard. It's all difficult things to do, but it doesn't require you going out and spending money on security technology or a lot of IT stuff even, because now we're talking about running things in the cloud. We're talking about it's software defined everything now. It should be easier once you make that initial jump to keep evolving your technology. I see so many organizations not doing it like you say, John.
And until people get burnt hard enough to actually hurt the organization and ultimately hurt the executives, and really that's who needs to get hurt. The CSO, the CIO are burnt, but honestly the CEO, the CFO, like all of them need to get turned over very, very quickly. But, you can try to punish the organization. And this is where this sucks. Let's say that a large company gets hit, right? Let's say General Electric gets hit, and you levy all these fines against General Electric, and General Electric lays off 100,000 employees. Then we have the employees who are punished for basically the sins of executive management for not taking this seriously. And that's not what anybody wants. Really, the accountability needs to tie up to the level where it goes all the way up to executive management and hold them accountable as much as possible. But we're a long ways off from that.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you very much for your insights on the Equifax breach. I was looking forward to chatting with you about that. I hope our listeners got something out of it as well. And thank you for listening and watching this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. We won't see you next week because we'll be at DerbyCon. So hope to see you there. Woo-hoo. If not, keep watching. Thanks, everyone.